they said we had to hold the tolerances and we had to hold the right positions. So just any toolmaker was not good enough. So we ended up going to Detroit, Michigan, to some of the automobile people and use some of their expertise. Of course, we had a chief engineer and I had some personal experience that also helped to lead us in the right direction so we knew how to get it done. All came together. We ended up finding welders by going to local junior colleges. We had two of them. Excuse me, I've got a cold. We had two junior colleges, one in Illinois and one in Iowa. And fortunately, we'd had a relationship that we had set up previously, where we could go to them and say, you know, we need so many welders, and this is the schedule in which we need them. They could train about 15 at a time. We also set up an internal training program so that we would allow people to go fork trucks, or assemblers, or any other job to learn how to weld at our expense after hours. So we provided the trainers, the equipment, the time, etc. And we ended up getting the welders we needed to meet the qualifications that were required. It was quite a challenge. The old cab was going to be replaced directly by the new cab. So there were some issues about how to work out the old inventory for what was now the current cab. We got samples from Austria, and that provided some of the issues because no one wanted to have all the samples laying around, so we had to try to bring it all together so we kind of had sets and made the transition to the new one as we needed to. But the story did go on. But I would say, in retrospect, you can't do too much planning. We call it quality planning, and that's really what it was. Because it was all evolved around the quality of what we had to do and the product that we were building. It's extremely important. You have to know what the result will be. You can't leave the chance, not when you got things at stake like you did at that time. I think you got to have good relationships with your community. You've got to maintain those through time as time goes on. You just can't all of a sudden go in on Friday and say, we vote on Monday. That won't happen. And you also have to have a good relationship with your customer, because there are a lot of issues you have to work out. So maintain good relationships, and that's pretty much our story. We had about 400 people before we introduced the new product. Most of the production was done after I retired, but I know that they got up to as high as 145 welders, big welders, on that one product. They no longer produce the product. It's a thing of history, and that's because the next contract went to Oshkosh Truck. So that's the way it goes. It was fun all to have. Thank you.
What he brings that up, I know better than touch it. I'm Howard Miller, and I'm here, I guess, because I used to work for Schwann Sales. So you're familiar with the work on trucks driving around the country and remember that this is food before. It's a little bit bigger than that. And we're here to talk about growth. Well, Schwann's had a history of growth, real good history. The funny thing about numbers, you don't realize what they mean until you're really in the middle of trying to figure out what they mean. Marvin, I didn't work for a CEO when I first went to Schwann's. I worked for an owner. A whole different program altogether. There wasn't a board of directors, there wasn't anybody. There was Marvin. And he had a way of doing things. In fact, when I went there, we were talking about a company that's over $1 billion. There were no budgets. I want you to think about that. All those people, nobody had a budget. I had a task that I was given, and I went there as out of the legislature as a government and industry relations manager. So I was out in Washington, D.C. a lot doing things. And certain things, when you're at a certain size and certain regulated industries, you work with people to figure out how to change those regulations to make it more beneficial to your company. But I had a major project to deal with. This Pizza Hut was trying to get into the school systems. Most of you don't realize it, but about 96% of all the pizzas in America that are sold in school systems are made by Schwann Stevens. So I want you to think about that. How many pieces of pizza I've eaten every day across this whole country. Make a long story short, I went to Margaret and I said, well, you know, kind of what's the budget for this? I got to bring some more lobbyists on, I had a few other things to do. He says, you don't have any budget. Just spend the money like it was yours. I hadn't had that kind of money before to spend, so I didn't quite know how to do that. But I learned quickly in that environment that he expected people in a decision-making authority to make decisions. And maybe I was successful in the company for one reason, and that's that I've been in the legislature. So every day, in committee or on the floor, I was forced to make decisions. Vote yes or vote no, constantly. So it didn't bother me to make decisions. I was used to it. I done it for 3 terms, 6 years. Wanted to save the world and found out the world didn't want to be saved, so I went back to work on Fridays after. So when I look at business, and I look at the company and the history that I've had in different roles that I've played, so I started out in government affairs. Ultimately, I ended up in corporate communication, ended up corporate marketing, things I didn't know anything about. From there, I ultimately ended up in sales, another area I didn't know anything about. And from there, they put me into facilities and operation and fleet. I certainly didn't know anything about that. So after doing all those things I didn't know anything about, I kind of had a good handle on how the company functioned. But to help put it in perspective for you, we decided to double the company in 5 years. It's not a big deal. It's just 15% a year. It doesn't sound like extraordinary growth. But when you look at it moving from 1 billion to 2 billion, and then you're going to double it in 5 years and move from 2 billion to 4 billion, you end up with a whole set of issues and problems you never even contemplated. So to begin with, I want you to think about capacity. If you're in a business and you're growing, or you want to grow, think about capacity. And if you're at capacity now, if you just want to grow at 15%, recognize that in 5 years, that business is going to be twice the size it is today. That means you've got to have twice as many people, twice as many systems, twice as much distribution capability, twice as much in warehouse. You know, when you start to look at it that way, 15% suddenly takes on a whole new meaning. So recognize what you're doing in your business and where you're headed and what you're going to need to do. Because you can't do that at the end of the 5-year period of time. You have to do this throughout the process. And the one thing that's more important than anything else in that process of growth is the missing piece. And you come to that understanding. I'll call it the aha moment, or as I like to phrase it, the prospect of being hung wonderfully concentrates the mind. Okay? That's when you realize that you need some help. It may be financial planning, it may be additional personnel, it may be new systems, it may be whatever it is, but you realize that what you are personally doing today, if you're going to grow that business, you're not going to be able to do it all yourself. Or you're not going to be able to do it with the existing personnel you have on board. So, what's the aha moment? You've got 3 stages of growth. I want you to think about that and where you're at in your own business. The first one is when you're doing everything. Okay, it's you and your spouse, maybe your brother, maybe your best buddy or girlfriend, but you are doing everything. You're making it happen. suddenly you realize if you're going to meet that next order, if you're going to grow and become prosperous and continue to grow, you need to bring some additional people on board. So now you're in the second phase, but you're still right on it. You've got your nose in everything. Nothing happens in that business without you knowing about it. Everything that's done in that business is done exactly the way you want it done. Okay? So it's still your business. At some point you hit that third level. And that third level can be a lot of various sizes. But it's at that point when you have to let go. When you can no longer manage on a daily basis or an hourly basis or a weekly basis or even a monthly basis what the people that you have working for you are doing. You have to have confidence in their ability to make those decisions, to do that job that you can no longer manage. And if you're out in a shop, or if you're building it, or if you're out selling it, you can't be in the other part of the business. All right? If you're going to do the job of making that widget, and you're going to focus on that, you can never be out promoting that widget. So you've got to make some decisions. And in that process, you've got to step back and say, okay, what is my real expertise? Am I good at this? Am I not so good at this? And when you can look yourself in the mirror and be real honest with yourself that these are my strengths, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to control, this is what's essential and core to my success as a business, then you go out and you find talent. Talent is the missing piece in any business. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you're doing. Without the talent, you're not going to succeed. So how do you go about that? You know, there's another 2-hour presentation, so I'm not going to get into that. And I know I'm getting a dirty look already. I haven't gone my 10 minutes yet. Okay, all right. But just think of it in 3 processes. The identification of talent. It doesn't mean you have to hire that person. But in all of your contacts, in all of your daily lives, when you see somebody out there and you go, God darn it, she is really good. You know, I could use somebody like that. Maybe you're not ready to hire that person yet. But remember to put her name down when you get back to your business and say, when I reach this point, I'm calling her up. Okay? Identify the talent before you need it. And when you're looking at that talent, don't think about the job that needs to be done. Think about the job that's going, that position is going to evolve into. Always hire better talent than what you need. Always hire better talent than you need at the moment. Because if you're growing your business, you're going to need greater bandwidth in the people you hire, greater capacity. Acquisition speaks for itself. Get them on board. You know, figure out a way to get them on board. Don't be penny wise and dollar foolish. Okay? That doesn't mean you give away the store. I'm not saying that. But understand what it takes to attract the kind of talent you're going to need to grow your business. All right? And finally, figure out how to retain them. Because it does you no good. In fact, it can do you tremendous harm if at the end of the day, after you've spent months or years getting that position to what you want it to be, and that individual is ready to assume that position, they decide to take a job next door. We heard that talked about. Okay, so make sure you're doing the things with your talent, because that's what's going to give you the opportunity to grow that business. You can't do it all yourself. The bottom line is that business is bigger than you. It simply is. If you're going to grow that business to whatever you want it to be, it's going to be far bigger than you. So leadership development, major outcomes and processes. If you hire somebody that's got the talent you were looking for, let them do the job. Give them the authority along with the responsibility. Okay? Allow them to do their job. And don't expect them to do it the same way you did. Because frankly, if you did it right to begin with, you hired somebody that was smarter than you in that area, they're probably going to figure out a better way to do that job than you did. So let them go. Okay? I mean, you don't let them run off the cliff, but you let them go. Okay? Let them perform. People love a challenge, and they love knowing that you trust them to do the job. Finally, it's what you learn after you know everything that really counts. So there's my 5 or 7 minutes, and we'll let you get on to the next one. One thing I do want to add, Marvin died about halfway through these growth plans. So picture that. Not only are you scrambling as fast as you can, moving from 25,000 employees to 25, from 12,000 to 25,000 employees, okay? Trying to find those around the country to do the job. But suddenly the owner has passed away. You don't have a board of directors. Okay? Marvin's brother